in scientific cooperation, in contribution to awareness campaigns, and indeed an outstanding example on how you can achieve relatively much with relatively little. The ship Aldebaran, which carries the name of a German enterprise and lately also a Belizean non-governmental organization, looks like an ordinary sailboat if you look at it from far. But if you come closer and if you're invited on board, you will see that this ship is loaded with high-tech equipment and is capable of things most of us only know from futuristic movies. And we have just seen in our underwater camera a stingray just below the boat. We will hear and see more about that, and I'm sure the crew of Aldebaran is ready to invite everyone on board and explain what they can do. We can hardly believe it. Well, and there's of course another German ingredient in today's event in the person of our common friend Steffi. She is the powerful engine behind many activities. I like to use this opportunity to express my gratitude, Steffi, for your major contributions to such important bilateral activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, my notes are at the end. I hope we can now come to the next point of your program, which is the interaction part of it. So thank you very much, and raise your glass once more before we all get two dry lips. Thank you very much. Cheers, Minister. Cheers.
Our colleagues, especially Steffi and Frank, who I have come to associate as a sister and a brother, the way I was treated in Germany when I went there last year. And Lindsay, we are from here, and therefore we can consider home brothers. But more importantly, since last year when I first met Ambassador Linda, he came to the center, and we had a very good exchange. And since then, all I can say is I can see the movement and the support coming from your government, which we appreciate. And I talk not only as a Belizean, but I talk in terms of the CARICOM region, since the center is a regional center hosted by the government and people of Belize. I have my colleague here, Dr. Traps, and I'd like to mention, as I told Steffi and Frank yesterday when they came to the center, that I was responsible to put the center in an operational mode. But Dr. Traps and Carlos Fuller and other people were the ones who thought about a center and got the governments to approve it. So I would like to recognize at this time our colleague, Dr. Traps. And before, I have one final person I'd like to mention, Mr. Rennie Berneve. For most of you, Rennie is a person you see on TV or The Voice. But we worked together many years ago at Radio Belize. And therefore, Rennie is no stranger to me. And when Steffi mentioned that we would like to put a program together with Mr. Berneve, I said, you're talking to a person who I know well. And therefore, I look forward to working with both of you to put this together. So on behalf of the CARICOM region and the center, I look forward to working very closely with C and other NGOs dealing with the issues of climate change. And I'm confident that with the support from the government and people of Germany, we will do this at an accelerated rate. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you, Minister.
Yes. You talk about the immune system, and the healthier the body is, the better it is able to resist illnesses. Same thing with our environment, and this is why a partnership with people who are in conservation is critical for us in climate change, because what we know is that the healthier our ecosystems are, the healthier our reefs are, the healthier our mangroves are, the healthier our wetlands are, the better they will be able to resist the threats of climate change. So here in Belize, I'm from Guyana, and I'm very impressed with the work that is being done in terms of conservation. And the partnership that I see emerging now between our German partners and our Belize conservation partners is basically spreading this message throughout the Caribbean about best practice in conservation. And the vision I have is a set of marine protected areas linked right throughout the Caribbean. Some of our islands have token areas under conservation and not properly managed. And I think this is something that's critical for us as we move forward with our work.
Okay, and that was Dr. Neville Trotz of the Caribbean Institute for Climate Change, which is, as we know, is headquartered in Belmopan and looks at climate change for the entire Caribbean community, for the entire CARICOM community. And that was our first round, right, Steffi?
Yes.
Yeah. And tomorrow on this show, we'll be having Dr. Trotz and Dr. Leslie in, and we'll be talking about not only climate change, but as to how the Belize Weather Bureau started. I bet you a lot of people don't know how the Belize Weather Bureau started. All right, well, they went in a holy history there, because Kendrick Leslie was the man who started the Belize Weather Bureau, you know. Now, we moved on, Steffi, to the press conference. We had lunch, a delicious lunch, like I told you, prepared by Wendy,
yes.
right, from Wendy's restaurant. Really enjoyed it. So we had lunch, and then after lunch, we went into the press conference.
Yeah.
Did we? Anything you want to say now before I start playing back the press conference?
No, the press conference was very important for us to bring together ministers, to bring together Dr. Leslie, Dr. Trotz, and the German ambassador. So it was the first meeting in this way, and to talk together and to see where our way is and our way together, perhaps.
Okay. Yes. It was more like a discussion on the high seas, if you want to put it that way. It wasn't really a press conference per se. We refer to it as press conference, but it wasn't a press conference. It was more a discussion on climate change and the need for preserving our barrier reef, etc., on the high seas. So let's just go into that, and then we have Lindsay Garbett, who will be explaining the work of sea and what it's doing in conservation, and Lindsay will be inviting Jocelyn from his office, who was along with him as well, and they'll be talking about sea, and that will be our first little segment there. So let's just play that.
Me, because sea really is an effort of a lot of people working together as a team. I have been privileged to be the leader of that team for the last 7 years, but by no means the most important person on the team. I think it's a team that is a circle. You know, Dwight has contributed so much to the success of the organization, and I'm sure he will pitch in. But Jocelyn is our technical coordinator, and since we want to talk a little bit about some of the technical work that we do, I'm sure over dinner and at other times we'll talk a little bit more about the management. I'll turn it over to her and just let her talk about some of the work that we are doing here. I certainly feel that one thing I would say is that working in this area for me is not just working as an executive director, it's working home. For those of us who grew up in this area, Gladden Spit out there and fishing for the snappers was what we call a rite of passage. Once you went out there and you fished and you didn't throw up, you were called or considered a man. And believe me, it was not always easy not to. So for me to look out there brings back a lot of memories. The first time I fished out there, I was 10 years old, and between my dad and myself, we caught about 150 fishes. I have not confessed that to Dwight and Jocelyn, since as scientists they will say I have contributed to the decline in the species. But certainly, like I say, this has always been home for me, and it has been a pleasure working. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Jocelyn, who has been a key part of what we're trying to do as an organization.
So basically the Southern Environmental Association, which is responsible jointly with the government of Belize for the management of Laughing Bird Key National Park, Gladden Spit Silk Keys Marine Reserve, and Sapodilla Keys Marine Reserve, was just recently formed but has a long background in protection